went back over this
Yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah, I know you.
Yeah.
When I poked my head in for a moment, and you were on the phone, so I put that.
Just working on ad backs, trying to reconcile the numbers.
I was in the restroom.
No.
Good evening and welcome to the committee meetings for November 12th, 2024. Our elected body present with us, of course, Mayor Kurt Wilson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Alan Sells, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember G. Lee Hills, and Councilmember William Morthland. I am Randy Knighton, the city administrator, joined by the city attorney, Mr. David Davidson, and the deputy city clerk, Michelle Miller. The purpose of committee meetings are for the city departments to convey information to mayor and council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda, as well as provide updates of vital information essential to the operation of city government. And by ordinance, the committee consists of the mayor and council and city administrator, who serves as chair of the meetings. This is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while we certainly welcome members of the public, questions or comments are not taken at these meetings unless specifically authorized by mayor and council. Public comments are received at the regular city council meetings on the second and fourth Monday of each month, and today, of course, on Tuesday due to Veterans Day yesterday, and the fifth Monday of each month in open forum. We do encourage all residents to engage our online platforms and reach out to our city staff members and team if you have any questions. We also encourage everyone to visit the city website for meetings, events, and departmental information, and visit Roswell365.com for a calendar of events, and the city web service portal to report any issues or concerns. The first item on the agenda for the evening is the approval of the minutes for the committee meetings for October 29th, 2024. Motion by Council Member Beeson to approve, second by Council Member Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is listed on the agenda under the heading of Public Works. Is consideration to award a task order with Chatfield Contracting Incorporated for the Ramsdale Drive Stormwater Construction Project in an amount not to exceed $244,748. Mr. Brian Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The item before you tonight is a project to replace 270 linear feet of 36-inch CMP or corrugated metal pipe with a 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe. We're also going to add a junction box and delineate between private and public infrastructure. This project went out to our pre-qualified bidders. After a couple of attempts, we did get one bid from Chatfield Consulting or Contracting. The city has worked with Chatfield in the past. They do really good work, and we're recommending award to Chatfield. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Watson. Questions for Mr. Watson? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve by Councilmember Sells, second by Councilmember Morthland. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously, and we'll move forward. Under police, item number 3, as listed on the agenda, a consideration to award a contract to construct a radio tower and relocate existing equipment to the new 911 center in the amount of $805,059.72. We have,
I gotta bring the rest of my A-team up, sorry.
all right. All right, we have the police chief, we have the IT director, as well as the 911 director.
All right, good evening,
Conroy.
Mayor, City Council, Mr. City Administrator. These next 3 items are related to the relocation of the new 911 Communications Center. And we have been asked by the CIP team to bring them before the Mayor and City Council at this point because due to the complexity of them, they have very long lead times before they can be implemented. So that's the reason for us being here this evening. The first one is a consideration of a contract with Motorola to construct a radio tower and relocate existing equipment to the new 911 center. This is a dedicated radio communications link between the new 911 center and the radio system prime site. Necessitates the construction of a new radio tower specifically designated for this purpose associated, along with all associated civil works. It's construction of the tower and includes relocation of the existing shelter, which is the Motorola standard building, including UPS routers and generator from the current site to the new location, and also includes movement of all radio consoles and backroom equipment to the new 911 center. It's a one-time expense of $805,059.72.
All right, thank you, Chief Conroy. Questions for Chief Conroy? Councilmember Beeson.
So to reiterate, this is coming out of the 2023 bond dollars, correct?
Correct.
That's it.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Beeson, second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously, thank you. Item number 4, consideration to implement the Carbine Apex 911 phone system in the new 911 center in the amount of $247,687.20. Chief Conroy?
Again, this was the telephone system, and this would be a new telephone system that would be in place at the new 911 center. It's a Carbine Apex 911 phone system, state-of-the-art. It's been reviewed by our 911 director and IT, and this is the system that's been recommended. It's the core technology for the new 911 center's phone system. It's the automated call distributor. There's a couple key advantages to going to this new system also. It's going to allow real-time video and location. Currently, that exists through a third party. This will go through the 911 phone system directly into the operators. Enhanced communication, including instant messaging, live chat. Again, that currently exists in third parties, and this will be within the phone system itself. It's going to analyze critical data and provide us much better reporting information, increased efficiency. The connection of this will be much faster than our current system. So presently, right now, when the 911 phone rings, the first 3 rings, it hasn't even connected to our system. This will connect much faster, saving those precious seconds. Also, one other exciting thing, it's going to also allow for instant language translation. So if we have foreign speakers that call 911, it will, within the system itself, be able to live translate that language so our dispatchers can read and hear that as well. There's a one-time expense of $247,000 and the monthly recurring fees of $18,956.
Chief Conroy, thank you. Any questions, comments for Chief Conroy or the team? Councilmember Beeson.
This might not be information you have at your disposal at this very moment, and I don't know if this is a Damian question or a John question. It says that the monthly recurring expense for this is $18,956. What's the current monthly recurring expense for our existing program, since this would be an upgrade?
If you, yeah.
So the original phone system that we have in place, I believe the initial or the actual recurring cost that it used to be. Now this is different. This is subscription-based and cloud-based. So take that as this is on-prem equipment that we currently have. I believe it was around $3,500 a month.
All right. Any further questions or comments regarding this item? Yes, Councilmember Sells.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. What's the lead time on delivery for this? Do they have they quoted a lead time yet?
12 months.
Okay. Are you surprised at all by the monthly fee in relationship to the implementation costs?
Yes and no. You're moving from an old copper-based solution,
Right.
right? And now you're moving to a cloud-based hosted solution, which is going to be charged based on subscriber. And also you're moving to a fiber-based solution, which is going to be more expensive. Hence the reason it went up.
Right.
Was I expecting an 18,000 lift? Not really. I was expecting it a little, probably closer to 12, but that's the prices AT&T came back with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Beeson, second by Councilmember Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that moves forward and passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 5, consideration to upgrade to an ESI Net digital IP delivery system for 911 calls in the new 911 center in the amount of $21,336.48. Again, Chief Conroy.
And this is another piece to that puzzle that the IT director was talking about. We're going from copper-based, right now the 911 trunks are copper lines, old school, 1969 is when they're created, to digital, to the digital world. We're upgrading to the modern piece. This EZNet is the important component to that. It goes to the CAMA trunks, which present increasing maintenance challenges, offsets those maintenance challenges, better functionality. And some of that functionality, I'm going to let the 911 director speak to it in a minute, but enhanced reliability, it's much better than the copper lines. Improved location accuracy, that's what I'm going to let John talk about in a minute. The NG 911 integration, which is the next gen 911, allows that automatic integration and location-based routing. Those are the two pieces that I'd like John to speak about.
Sorry. So, couple things that it kind of goes to is, one, you need both aspects of this. You need the fiber lines in order for the new phone system. They kind of go hand in hand, but they are two separate things, so I want to be very clear on that. With the actual digital lines, what this does is, and that's when we're talking about the actual ringing of the lines. When you call 911, your first 3 rings are not actually in the 911 center. Your first 3 rings are the connection speed, because they're using CAMA trunks, what that's called. That was old school for how long distance lines used to be transferred. That's how 911 lines are. What this does, it takes it fiber. So Alpharetta actually has this right now, and they're talking about getting their calls 7 to 9 seconds faster, which is basically you're getting in the 911 center within that first ring. So that's the aspect of doing that as well. And then the location routing aspect of it is important too. So right now, as we talked about in the past, when you call 911, it routes based on the cell tower location. So if you're on the west side of the city, east side, north, or you're driving down Riverside Road and you call 911, you may get a different 911 center because it routes based off the cell tower. Having the fiber alliance allows all of the cell phone companies, which they just started this year, sending that GPS location data to the cell tower and it routing your location to the correct 911 center. So even if you hit that cell tower that's located in Sandy Springs or Cobb County, you can still get the city of Roswell and not have to be transferred back to Roswell. So that's another key component of that location-based routing as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Sells.
Yes, but we're not replacing any copper. We're just basically buying a piece of machinery that allows us to connect to fiber. There's fiber in front of the building, I suppose.
So, no, this is for the new sharpshooter site. So we're bringing fiber into that site. And the reality is, the reason why we're bringing fiber, because there's no copper in the ground to bring to that
Well,
site.
that's good, actually, but you're hitting the fiber, the sonnet loop or something that's on the street, or we're not laying fiber except on our own property to get, in this, yeah.
AT&T is going to be bringing As in, that is the service they offer for 911.
This replaces the old punch panel that's in the,
Essentially, so they're gonna be bringing, what you're gonna get is not just one single pull, you're gonna get two separate pulls from two different rings. So and they'll be coming from different sides of the building. So you get built-in redundancy, so in case for whatever reason, someone damages fiber on one side, all your stuff transitions to the other. So you get redundancy built in.
they're running to two places on the fiber nut, or are they running?
Two separate rings they'll run.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Beeson.
What's the lead time for these changes?
Same here.
So 12-month span then? And then are these changes or implementations, do these need to be put in place before E911 is relocated?
Yes.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Mayor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Chief, just to confirm, none of the reoccurring charges will happen in the FY '25 budget at the end of the year from what we foresee today, correct?
Maybe in December.
Yeah, I don't see them in there.
If we, it depends what day we open the 911 center. So they should not, but you never know.
Okay.
But yeah, these are all 12-month lead time items. Once we sign the contracts, we're in mid-November. Yeah, I don't see it occurring.
Yeah, I don't have them in the FY '25, that's why, yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, boy. Okay, any further questions or comments? All right, thank you. Seeing no further question or comments, we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Beeson, second by Councilmember Sells. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? All right, thank you, that passes unanimously, moves forward. Item number 6, consideration to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Georgia Department of Labor. I believe Chief Conroy, this is an item for you, sir.
Yes, this is. So this is a memo of understanding that we currently have with the Georgia Department of Labor. Our current MOU is expiring. What it is it's to access certain records that the Georgia Department of Labor has. They mandate that any law enforcement agency who requests information from them have an MOU in place. And the main component of that MOU is that any information must only be used for active criminal or administrative investigations only. That's the main component of the MOU and the requirement. And this is one we have had in place for several years.
All right, thank you, Chief. Questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Beeson, second by Councilmember Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that moves forward unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Under Economic Development, item number 7, as listed on the agenda, consideration of a redevelopment plan to establish tax allocation district number 1, known also as the Roswell East-West Connection TAD. Mr. Connolly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and members of council and representatives. I have with me Jeff Kosky. He's the president of KB Advisory. KB is an economic development market analysis firm. They specialize in tax allocation district plans. He and his team has written most of the TAD plans in the Atlanta region, and so I'm happy to have him here. He has written, under our guidance, the tax allocation district redevelopment plan that you have in front of you. So tonight, this is consideration of a redevelopment plan to establish our first tax allocation district. It's called the East-West Connection TAD. We're not asking you to vote on approval of this. This is just to move it through to council, where we would have a public hearing, and then you would vote formally on the TAD. So we've talked a lot about some of the challenges that the city has. One of them is that along its corridors, the city is characterized by aging commercial shopping centers. A lot of them are at the end of their useful life, at 40 years. They are, in some cases, considered blighted. There's vacancies, there's stagnant real property growth along the corridor. There's also low investment and economic development, and there's also pockets of poverty, which we'll talk about in a bit. The city would like to create some motivation for investment in the corridor, including targeting some catalytic projects and also to unify East and West Roswell. A tax allocation district is an economic development tool that can help to accomplish these goals and help to spur investment. Just at a high level, a tax allocation district redevelopment plans are authorized under the redevelopment powers of the Georgia Code. The Act allows local governments to designate redevelopment areas by adopting a redevelopment plan, which you have in front of you, under certain guidelines. The TAD essentially identifies specific parcels in the area, and the city can offer tax increment financing or TIF financing to stimulate and incentivize private investment in the area. This before you is really just a basic TIF model. This is an example. It is not representative of what we're doing here, but this is showing a TAD that has a 23-year life. We are proposing a 25-year life. Essentially, the blue is showing the existing tax base, which is monies that are going into the general fund from those TAD parcels. And in the TAD, once you've identified those parcels, any incremental tax would go into a TAD fund to be used for incentivizing development projects. At the end of the TAD, in our case, it would be 25 years, all those revenues would come back to the general fund. It would no longer, TAD, if you issued bonds and the bonds are paid off, all those monies would come back to the city. The TAD funds can be used for a number of different things. Infrastructure, utilities such as water and sewer, there's parking decks, any sort of site improvement that you can think of that has a public benefit, those TAD funds can be used for. Could also be used for up to 15% of redevelopment costs for a redevelopment project. That includes land assembly as well as hard and soft costs. And the TAD funds can be used to pay back TAD bond debt service. We can talk about that in a little bit. There are some basic tests for tax allocation districts, and it's outlined in the TAD plan, but you basically have to demonstrate that the area qualifies under the definition of need and needs some incentives to achieve local objectives. So some of the questions that we've asked are, is the area blighted or distressed? Are there substandard, obsolete, or deteriorating structures? Is there pervasive poverty? And does the area have adequate or inadequate infrastructure, such as roadways, pedestrian access, or transportation? Those are all the things that Jeff and his team have looked at for our TAD plan. Some of the goals for a tax allocation district includes stimulating growth in jobs, wealth, housing opportunities, as well as other economic development goals. It will also generate new property tax revenue by spurring development that would not otherwise occur, resulting in a larger tax base and enhancing the fiscal position of the city. It also will draw investment into targeted areas and neglected areas. Jeff?
All right. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Where's it? Sorry.
It's finicky. It's not you.
It's fancy though. I like it. Got it. All right. So again, Jeff Koski, president of KB Advisory Group. We're a local consulting firm. As Daryl said, TADs are kind of our thing. One of our things, at least. But certainly the thing we're most active on right now. We're trying to get 6 different TADs passed across the state. You see here, well, and so just so you know, you've got the plan in front of you, the proposed plan for consideration. The next few slides are really just excerpts from that plan, just to kind of socialize what's in there. It's very technical. The state law that guides these plans, asks you to do a lot of kind of number crunching and technicalities. And so we just wanted to kind of present to you and speak about it in sort of layman's terms as you dig into the plan itself. Again, this you see here is the proposed TAD, tax allocation district, in gold outlined in red. This is a large TAD, almost 1,200 parcels, almost 2,000 acres, almost 1.7 in value, in fair market value, as appraised by the tax assessor. So then, in terms of what's getting taxed, as we know, the base value at 40%. And so, you're collecting somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million currently out of this TAD. This represents almost 10% of the, well, I should say, you and the schools and the county are collecting $21 million annually in the TAD. So one reason that matters is because the state law requires that no more than 10% of all your TADs, which this would be the only one, of course, equal no more than 10% of your overall property tax digest. And so that's part of the decision-making process that went into defining this boundary, is that we couldn't exceed 10% of your overall property tax digest. And again, one thing about TADs, if for those who weren't listening that closely, this is all about property taxes, right? So your sales taxes, your hotel motel taxes, your any other taxes, and all the property taxes outside of the TAD will continue to flow the way they always have, and the current base value, as Daryl said, will also continue to flow. Base value of the property taxes will also continue to flow into the general fund. What we're talking about here is the growth in property taxes within this area, paying for the things that Daryl just described. So that's the kind of general idea, the general kind of, TAD by the proposed TAD by the numbers here. Do I have the clicker? You have the clicker? Sorry. Does that work?
Let me go stay on that last one.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to point out a couple properties here. So this property down here, this is the movie studio grill property. And what we tried to do is we're trying to really connect East and West Roswell, this Holcomb Bridge Road going west. So you've got the movie studio grill property, you have the Coles property. We've included, here is the Kimberly Clark property, here is the Roswell Summit property. This is the Mims property over at Highway 9 and Holcomb Bridge Road. This here is owned by PPF. It's the Mansell Overlook property, and there's General Motors is up in this area too. The TAD includes several schools, 6 of them to be exact. That allows us some negotiation flexibility with regard to the school district. We want to get them to buy into this TAD and participate in it. So we've included 6 schools. We've also included a number of parks, including Big Creek Park here. There's also the East Roswell Park. So you can essentially, any tax increment you can spend on projects within the tax allocation district boundary. So if you wanted to spend money on a particular property, you can do that within the TAD.
Thank you, Daryl. Well said. So again, thinking of those justifications, state law requires that that in order to set up a TAD, you have to meet at least one of the tests that Daryl was talking about. We've found that this area meets a few of the tests. One of them is this idea of aging commercial properties. And so we did an analysis of all the commercial properties within the TAD. It turns out that the median age is 40 years old. The mean age, the average age is just above that, but almost right at 40. And so this is, in and of itself, worthy of creating a TAD. If you've got a collection of old commercial properties this old, it meets the test for why you can set up a TAD here. And again, you can see the collection of older buildings, particularly around 400 and then to the west. Daryl mentioned the poverty statistics. This is by census tract. And so again, the state law asks you to consider the amount of poverty in census tracts, and if there are any that are 10% or more in poverty. And so again, you can see the TAD outline in blue this time, and the census tracts that are in that darker brown, reddish color are all above 10% household-wise, above 10% poverty rate. And so again, because there's a good portion of the TAD that does include some of these particular higher poverty areas, the TAD is justified in according to state law. Now, so that, again, like there's a section in there that spells all that out, gets into further details. Another section, the state law asks of the plan to anticipate what type of a development might occur within the TAD. And there are a handful, if not more than a handful of planned and proposed projects within the TAD. So there are also plenty of projects over the course of 25 years that will be built in the TAD that we just simply can't know about as we sit here today. So what we did, again, as asked by the state law, is anticipate by doing a high-level forecast of what the future value of some of the planned and proposed projects within the TAD are going to be, in addition to a few that might happen, right, that are kind of likely candidates for redevelopment over time, such as the Studio Movie Grill redevelopment, which again is not necessarily planned in any particular manner yet, but over the course of 25 years, particularly with the TAD in place, we would assume that that would get redeveloped. We took a forecast of what might happen on any of these there's 10 projects. And then we kind of did a catch-all. There's 9 projects and a catch-all. So again, this is required by law to allow us to understand what type of value might be created in the TAD to then understand how those funds might be used, right? And so again, this is a forecast. This is whatever we know, it's not going to happen exactly like this, but it's just to get you in the ballpark thinking about what benefits the TAD might be able to bring to the area. So based on that forecast, again, high-level forecast looking out for 25 years about redevelopment projects that are likely to happen, this is how this sort of breaks down. You've got 3 levels of graphs here. One is just the city, and year by year as we forecasted it out, how much additional annual revenue might be created in the TAD just based on the city's millage. So if you take those values from the previous plan, or previous slide, apply the city millage rate, you get to values that over the next 25 years grow to $120 million. That's based on the city's millage. As we know, the city's millage is lower than the county millage and certainly lower than the school's millage. The key to having this TAD, or really any TAD, succeed at its highest level is to get the county and the schools to participate. The state law requires that they have to affirmatively vote to join your TAD, right? So you are asking them to join this TAD so that you can, instead of collect over the next 25 years, $120 million into the TAD fund. Instead, if the county and the schools are involved, you're looking at $750 million of potential revenue that could be created within this TAD. Again, to do infrastructure, to do projects, to do big economic development things with $750 million. But again, the key to that is that the county and the schools agreed to participate in this TAD. So again, excerpt from the plan, more forecasting that the state law requires, just thinking about how this money might be accessed, if you will, right? And there's really kind of 2 ways that it could go. Classic TIF, right? And by the way, you saw the word TIF, right? When they set up the TAD, the TIF law in Georgia in the mid-'80s, they decided to call it TAD. TIF, TAD, same thing. We just call ours in Georgia TADs. 49 other states call them TIFs. But classic TIF/TAD is that you use this future income stream, right, this future growth in property taxes, and you bond off of it, right? And we call that monetizing the future income stream. So in order to do infrastructure, to get infrastructure in the ground, in order to do vertical projects, you need that money up front. And so you can go out to the bond market and let them know about projects. And there are bond buyers who will buy a TIF bond to help finance infrastructure and other kind of upfront costs. That's one way to do it. We took a shot at what it might look like, how much money might be on the table. These are very generic assumptions we're making. Again, the bonding would likely not all be lumped together over the course of 25 years, but just thinking about kind of in the ballpark of what might be on the table as required by the state law. The pay-as-you-go option, if you will, again, you can see that $757 million in the bottom right. That refers back to the other forecasting. So again, you can fund projects or partially fund projects just as a pay-go stream, just as a basically returning the property taxes that are being created back to the entity that creates them within the TAD. So again, they can take that money and borrow off of it, or you could borrow off of it without issuing a bond. It could go either way. We don't know yet, but we've done some thinking about how that might look into the future. So again, these are big numbers. This is a big TAD. We think it has the potential to really make a big difference in the city. The plan is written based on the way the law asks that this plan be written. And so, I think you've got an opportunity to do something here with your first TAD that can really be impactful, should you choose to put that in place.
So in terms of next steps, we would like to advertise and hold the public hearing. Public hearing would be at the city council meeting if you are okay with that. Council would then be asked to approve and adopt the redevelopment plan that you have in front of you and create the TAD, as well as designate the mayor and council as the redevelopment agent. We would then go out by the end of this year to obtain state certification of the base value of the digest and set up a special fund. We need to do that this year. And then we would continue conversations with Fulton County and Fulton County Schools to get their participation in the TAD. You do not need their approval right now to set up the TAD.
That's right.
So the request of mayor and council is really the adoption of the proposed redevelopment plan and establish the tax allocation district number 1 for a period of 25 years and designate council as its redevelopment agent. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right. Questions, comments? Council Member Morthland, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Harold, just to be clear, this is not new taxes. This is future income that is being applied to this area of need or area of development, correct?
That's correct. So the existing taxes that are going into the general fund will continue to go into the general fund. So it's the incremental taxes that are incremental taxes based on the increase in value of property are going into the TAD fund.
And if I could just put a finer point on that, if a Roswell property is in a TAD, the tax bill looks basically the same. It may note that it is in a TAD, but the millage rates are the same. So being in a TAD doesn't impact millage rates. It doesn't raise taxes, right? So it is, as Darrell said, the TAD fund is growing because of the growth in property values that either happen just quote unquote naturally or more impactfully because of the new development that is occurring.
It is not a new tax on residents.
There you go. Thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you for your presentation. So if I understand correctly, really what we're doing is we're adopting the boundaries of, that's what this presentation is, to adopt the boundaries. And the content of what you provided are hypotheticals that are required basically by state. So in one of the slides that you showed potential developments. I mean, potentially those developments could all be retail and office buildings without any residential. or any combination thereof. But this is just something that you put together to show what the potential tax growth or property tax growth would be. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct.
There's some people that had real heartburn and misinformation about that, but other people were delighted, and I said, whoa, wait, those are hypothetical. I just want to make sure I answer them correctly.
That's right, absolutely. And all the quote-unquote number crunching that I'm referring to in here, that the forecasting, yes, it's just that, a forecast as required by the law. But it's important to note, I think it's a great question, a great thing to bring up, is that nobody's held to any of that, right? It's just it's an exercise that to make sure that you all who are considering setting up this TAD are thinking about what might occur into the future. But in terms of what gets instituted, if you will, it's really just those boundaries, right? The TAD plan that you have lists all 1,200 of those parcels, right? They have to be listed out, and so that which makes up the TAD, the action, if you will, is really only at the tax assessor's office, right? And by setting up a special TAD fund, it's really just about where the increase in property taxes flow to. They can either, the base value will flow into the general fund. Anything above the base value within the TAD will flow into your special TAD fund. And that's the action that you are approving by passing the TAD. And so all the other, any project within the TAD will still have to go through all the zoning protocols, just like any other project. This doesn't change any of the approval, land use controls, et cetera, that you all have at your disposal.
Thank you for that clarification.
And you also have the ability to approve of projects that you want. Monies that are going to that TAD fund, you get to approve how you want to spend those dollars.
That's right. By approving this TAD and making yourself the redevelopment agent is what you would be approving, you get to control the purse strings. It will be up to the council, if you're the redevelopment agent of a TAD, to determine how the money flows. Some other communities will quote unquote pass that off to, say, the development authority or to some authority that they set up specifically for TADs, because that's how their world works. But I would say the vast majority, the vast majority of Georgia cities that have TADs, the council is the redevelopment agent and controls the purse strings. So that's what's being proposed here.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Councilmember Beeson.
Get a little Michael Scott on you and trying to walk myself through this as if I'm 5 years old, and I need you to correct me if I understand this correctly or incorrectly. Walk me through it. We have an existing tax base within that map. Could you go back to that map real quick? And I realize that one, perfect. That captures the entire area in which you currently have the base tax value of $21.2 million. Each year after 2024, where it's locked in, and that assessed value goes up, as it probably will, one would hope. We have some bigger problems if it doesn't go up. As it goes up, it's only the additional amount of money that it's assessed. So if a property assesses at a tax value that would equal, just for easy math, $10,000, it goes up. The property taxes, if it's the next year, $12,000, that extra $2,000 gets captured in this TAD. It's set aside its own little pot. The city gets to keep the $10,000, TAD gets $2,000, and that happens year over year for 25 years, correct?
Correct.
However, the money that goes in that pot can only be used inside that red line.
Correct.
So I guess where some of my hand-wringing comes from on my end, and I realize I'm significantly more risk-averse than most people, this captures, based off a map that we were presented at the last committee meeting, almost the majority of our commercial properties in the city of Roswell. And I realize it's 10% of your city tax digest, but it's a lot of our commercial tax digest. There's very little that exists outside of this map within commercial property taxes. Understanding that we're taking that captured value for the next 25 years, in addition to whatever it's locked in at this rate offline, and pulling it only into an area that can be used within the confines of this map. Is there no concerns on your end because you did reiterate it is a large TAD. Is there no concern on your end related to the size or the amount or the percentage of our commercial properties and capturing that value?
I don't know that I'm in a position to answer that. That wasn't asked of me to be concerned about
Understood.
necessarily. So, I don't know the inner workings of your.
I'll take the heat off you. I feel like this is even a Randy question, because I realize that we don't necessarily have a financial person from the city at the table right now. Randy, looking at the boundaries of this map, it doesn't cause any cause for concern on your end of taking that additional income offline for 25 years, with the understanding that you can dissolve it at any point in that 25 years as long as you're not having outstanding debt, correct? That's the correct understanding of those parameters, okay. Yeah, you have, the debt has to be paid off. I just want to make sure that we're not tying our own hands to the point of any of this additional would have to go onto residential homeowner tax base to bear the brunt of the taxes that we're having to take off the table if it's going to limit the city and our abilities. There's no concerns on your end.
City administrators are always concerned about everything.
I know I'm asking you this in the middle of a budget week, but yes.
But I think the way the TAD is geographically delineated, it is rather thin along Holcomb Bridge Road, and so there are some additional parcels further on Holcomb Bridge Road and even further down off of Canton Street, Woodstock, et cetera, that are commercial properties as well. Now, obviously, this does contain a significant portion of commercial properties, but also the balance of the city we would anticipate would also increase in value over this period of time. And so I would certainly think and believe that there would be an offset as well. But the increment that would be produced from the TAD, I think, would likely be substantial, just based on general knowledge that I have and anecdotal inferences that have been provided.
But no concerns about negative impact on the general fund and operations then, with using these dollars?
Generally speaking, I would not.
Okay, fair.
And, go ahead, Darrell.
Councilmember Sells.
Yeah, why don't I weigh in a little bit here? So the taxes to Roswell that we're talking about freezing are 6.94 on a budgeted, what's our budgeted tax for 2025?
On the GF, call it 101.
Less from, that's just for the M&O, right? So it's
Property, yeah,
it's
property.
meaningful, but it's not an enormous number. And just to be clear, I'll pitch this to you, make it in the form of a question. The only taxes that are frozen in that TAD are the ad valorem taxes on the property. So any other taxes that are commercial in nature continue to come to the city's general fund just as they always do, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And as we looked at the 4 bars that Jeff did last time, the non-real estate commercial taxes were larger than the commercial real estate taxes in 100% of our space. So there is definitely some risk. There's no question about that, because you're fixing $7 million at $7 million based on the appraisal. There's a couple things I wanted to make sure that I understand. One is, if we raise the millage rate generally across the entire city, that millage rate comes to the general fund, including on the TAD.
Right.
In other words, it's only the appraised value increase that is trapped in the TAD. Okay. Would you mind going to the next slide where you got the ages? Okay. I mean, this is the problem we're trying to solve right here, because if you think about the commercial is average age of 40, the commercial follow the residential. The residential areas, which are clearly not part of the TAD, are substantially older, okay? 50, 60 years old in some cases in some of these places. And what we're faced with, that Sear brought to the meeting that we did where they talked about the strategy, was a lot of this housing is becoming rental because it's well past its prime. And so the whole purpose of this drawing here is to bring as much economic vibrancy to those areas to make sure that those single-family homes remain single-family homes. That's the bottom line. So that's sort of what we're doing here. I mean, this is a telling graph. The average age is 40. that's pretty strong. And the last thing, if you go one more down, there's the knock-on effects or the halo effects, as my friends from KB call it. What we're drawing here, the blue, is just really commercial. And of course, so those areas where we have the higher below the poverty line rates will benefit from the economic growth in those, but you couldn't really, you wouldn't include them in a TAD because they're not appreciating assets through the actions of economic development. In other words, a house is a house is a house. And so the reason that it doesn't include them directly is because we're focused on real estate that will be redeveloped. Much of that gray fields, like the MEMS property and others that are past their useful life, and this is the way to do it. And I guess the last point I'd make is, it's been said a couple different ways, but basically this is a hall pass. This is a stream of cash that we are saying we're going to use this in this area to borrow against, and it doesn't come out of the general fund per se. That's what we're doing. And so that's why it's as big as it is. That's why you don't have to borrow all of it at one time. You can borrow specifically on a given project, which would come to us to approve, as these guys have said a number of times. It'd come to us to approve. We would look at it on its merits. We'd go through those 4 or 5 questions at the end of the memo, right? And say, does this pass? Does it cover? Those kinds of things. Then we'd vote on that one. We could raise the debt specifically for that one. We're not taking whatever this particular area would carry in debt, which is something like $370 million or something like that. We're not going to market with that in the first move. The projects will be driven that way. That's my view.
All right, thank you, sir. Any further questions or comments?
Just one comment.
Yes, Mayor Wilson.
Yeah, so there won't be any multifamily at the Studio Moviefield Grill. And we already know that. There's several plans put together. I know we showed it for purposes for illustration of the TAD. I think the number there was 2,400. But I can say with clarity, I don't think there's any appetite in the governing body for any multifamily in the near future or in the long term for any multifamily at the Studio Moviefield Grill. So I just wanted to kind of make clarity on that number if somebody picks that up. Another thing, I think, sir, you're exactly right, is that the cool thing about this, and you look at property taxes, and they're a big part of discussion always when you're talking about revenue at a municipal level. And the reality is they're worth about $30 to $32 million to the city. You can see that the aggregate of this TAD is $21 million, of which, say, Roswell is approximately 15.9% of that. And that is, to your point, that is a fixed number, so it won't go down and it won't go up. But the number that will go up, and this would be it would be foolish to put together a TAD if the aggregate was just to continue a TAD to say, hey, we're going to have incremental tax increase. And so the new tax increases go on the existing properties. The reason you do this is for significant ability to redevelop in the places where you need to redevelop, where there's not the capacity to do that currently. And that's really why this is being done. This creates economic spur of activity that you can support on the infrastructure side primarily to allow projects that you will control, that you will vote on, that you'll be fully in your capacity to say, yes, I want this project, or no, I do not want this project. And those will remain fully in your control. But this allows you the economic stimulus and ability to do that. And where you'll really see income growth for the city and revenues in a number of ways, but probably most significantly would be local option sales tax, business occupancy tax, impact fees. All of those will be new revenue to the city, which are fairly significant and really much more significant than what we're demonstrating. And that is one of the hopes for us, well, not hopes, it's plans, in terms of gathering real new revenue streams for the city on the GF side, on the general fund side.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. And just to make sure I've got this straight, this doesn't preclude any monies that we might receive from the CID, the Community Improvement District. One doesn't cancel the other out, correct? So we have that as well, because some of the properties overlap with this map.
I'm so glad you brought that up. CIDs, PFAs, all mutually exclusive. Thank you for bringing up that, Lee, because those are all different tools, they're all economic tools that the city's going to employ. And the TAD is a separate piece, so I'm really glad you outlined that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I believe you are requesting that Mayor and Council move this item forward to its next formal step. Motion, is that a motion by Councilmember Morthland? Second by Councilmember Hall. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously and moves forward. Thank you very much. All right, that does conclude the agenda for the November 12, 2024 committee meetings. I will entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion by Councilmember Beeson, second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor? All in favor? All right, thank you very much.